Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you can hear me. This morning I have decided to clean out my garage freezer, and today I am making soup. I have thoroughly enjoyed the soup that I've been eating that I canned a year ago. So to replenish the soup so that I have it on the shelf, I'm cleaning out my freezer and I am making soup. So if you'd like to see what kind of soup I'm making, stay tuned. So the onions have sweat down and browned nicely, just the way I like it. The Instant Pot has indicated that it's time to stop sauteing. So now what I'm going to do is open up with my new jar opener. I have no idea how to use this thing. I just washed it, just opened it up and took it out of the box. So I'm going to add with these onions my veggie stock and my roasted onion stock that I canned myself last year this time. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this, because I have no idea. Oh, I think this is how you do it. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Perfect. I love it. Did y'all hear that? Y'all probably didn't see it, but I'll show y'all in just a second. So this is the onion stock, 1 quart. I'm gonna pour it in. And there is some onion residue at the bottom, which is great because you can never have enough onions, in my opinion. I know some people like to strain out, but I do not. So that's my onion stock. And I made that August 2nd of 22. Now, I'm going to see if I can show you guys how to use this new fancy jar opener. And I got this because my other jar opener was tearing up my lids. And if you notice on the roasted onion lid, I normally put, if I've used it before, this is the second time I've used this lid. I wouldn't recommend you all doing that, but I did it because the rubber looked like it hadn't really been used, so I tested it out and it worked just fine. It sealed perfectly. So the other can opener that I was using was tearing up my lids, and I like to reuse my lids for dry goods. And so let's see if you guys can see. Can you all see that? I just put it on there like that and lift. Oh, that sound is beautiful. And if you notice, all it did was rest on the lip right here. It didn't tear up anything, so I can reuse this lid now for dry goods. The other can opener I was using, and I'm going to show you guys in just a second. This is some veggie stock that I made. I made this veggie stock September of 20. So this one is a little bit older than my roasted onion. There we go. And let's get these out the way. What I had been using before to open up my jars was this, and this is no good for opening up mason jars. All it does is tear your lids up, so I wouldn't recommend using that. Now that I have my stock in there with those onions, I'm gonna add, well, I was gonna add some more onions, but I think I'm good on onions. This is my dried walking onion and leek powder that I made myself, so I'm not gonna use that. I thought about it, changed my mind. This is a mixture of black pepper, mustard seed, and cilantro seed. I like the taste, so I'm gonna put that in there and season that up that way. I'm gonna put some garlic powder. And I'm just gonna be generous with the garlic powder. Because why not? Garlic is good for you. Now that I have my vegetable stock and my onion stock, it's time to put in what I pulled out of the freezer. And this is squash. I have some red curry squash that I grew, and I have some kabocha, I think is how you say that, squash that I bought from the store. So I am going to place that in the Instant Pot, like so. And I have more over here. Now you can peel it, the red curry squash, or you can eat the skin. I was peeling it, and now I'm like, yeah, no, not peeling it. I'm just gonna put it in here and use the immersion blender and blend it down. If I need to strain it, I will strain it. One more bag. As I mentioned, I am cleaning out the freezer and making room for all the new goodies that are going to be coming in this year. All right, so now it's time to get this cooked down for just a minute or two. We want to warm this all the way through. I want to bring this to a boil. I want to warm this through to make sure that the squash is soft, just a little bit softer than what it is. And then we're going to hit it with the immersion blender and get it in the canner. So let's turn it on boil. I almost forgot. I'm going to add an apple to this recipe. And now we're going to bring it up to a boil. The squash has finished boiling. So now it's time to hit it with the immersion blender. Look at that. The apple has really broken down. So this is going to be loud, so I'm going to take the volume down so that you don't have to hear it. Now it's time to jar this up and get it in the canner. I don't know if you can see or not. This is relatively thin, and that's what you want when you are making any type of squash soup. Now, in my research, I've seen this done two ways. People are keeping it cubed, and they are pureeing it. This is very thin. This is not really a puree. A puree is much thicker than this. So I'm going to jar this up and get this in the canner. I have kept my jars in the canner to keep them warm while I worked on the soup. And so now I'm going to try and not make a huge mess. But I can't guarantee anything. I think I'm going to have to switch my setup. So let me do that. Okay, I've had to move myself closer to the stove because there's a great possibility that I will make a bit of a mess. So because of that, I am going to get a bowl and put my jar in the bowl. In the event that I do drip, it gets in the jar and not necessarily all over the counters. Okay, now I'm ready. Oh my goodness, this has been a day. So I'm just gonna ladle this in. If I did not mention it, I am using a 26-ounce mason jar. I like to put my soups in 26-ounce mason jars. So I'm just gonna ladle this in, and then I'll be right back. I'm gonna take this to a 1-inch head space. As you can see, this is not a very thick soup. It does have a little hardiness to it, but it is not excessively thick, as you can see as I'm pouring it in. I may take this to a little bit less than a 1-inch head space, just to give this some room in the jar to bubble around. Because this is indeed a squash, so I'm gonna take it down just a tiny bit less than a 1-inch head space, just a tiny bit less, because I don't want this to really get going and there's lots of siphoning, because this is squash. It is a little bit thick, but it's not excessively thick. So let me finish the rest of the jars. and then I'll be back. But before I do that, I'm gonna debubble because it's easy to forget to do that. I'll put my little paper towel down there. I'm just gonna debubble that. Debubbling is important. I'm going to use some vinegar. Let me get another jar out of the canner right quick before I do that, so I can have something to put my funnel on pour the water out. Let me get my funnel, transfer it over. I am going to wipe the rim of the jar with the vinegar, like so. I have my lids over here to the side. They have been washed. My rings are over here as well. Let me make sure that it's sitting properly, just like so. Fingertip tight, and in the canner it goes. So I am going to continue this process, and I really don't like this particular jar lifter and this jar. They don't really get along. It slides. I don't know if you can see it, but it slides a bit. I think it's because it's not circular. The jar is not circular, so it slides a little bit. So I have to be very careful. So I'm gonna fill the rest of these jars and then I'll be back. Because the bulk of my soup is squash, I'm gonna can this as if it is a cubed squash, just to be safe, because there are a couple of different variations of this online and they're doing different things. And so I want to be safe, and I'm going to can this as if it is a cubed squash. So I've done all of my checks and balances. I've oiled my gasket. I've looked through my steam hole and my vent hole, and you can see straight through it. And so now I have the 3 quarts of water. I have a little bit of distilled vinegar in the canner. I've loaded my jars. I'm going to place my lid on. This might take me a minute. There we go. I'm going to secure my lid. I'm going to make sure that my canner is sitting properly on the fire. It is. You want to make sure that the center of your canner is in the center of your eye. I just so happen to have a gas stove, so I have fire, and the center has to be in the center of my canner. So I'm going to turn this up to high, bring this up to boil. When it starts to steam, I'm going to let it steam for 10 minutes. Then I'm going to put on my rocker, and as soon as it well, that's not right. It's been a long day, y'all. But you've seen me can before. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this steam for 10 minutes. Once this steams for 10 minutes, and of course the safety valve pops up, I am then going to place my rocker on my steam valve. Once my rocker begins to rock appropriately, because there is the right type of rock, it has to jiggle just right. Once it begins to jiggle, then I will set my timer. I am going to time this for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Now, I'm sure that's excessive, but I would rather be safe than sorry. So that's what I'm doing today. So let's get started. Bringing it up to temperature. Timer has gone off, so it's time to turn off the stove and let this come down from pressure. The canner has come down off of pressure, and so it's time to open it up. Let it sit for 10 minutes and let the hot air vent out. And after 10 minutes, I will take the jars out of the canner. As you can see, no pressure. Opening it up away from me, and I'm just going to let it sit here for 10 minutes and let some of that hot air come out so that it has less siphoning. I can smell the squash, so I feel like it has siphoned, even though I didn't put it to the 1-inch headspace. I tried to give it a little bit less than 1-inch headspace because I just felt like that squash was really going to bubble out. But we'll see what it looks like when we open it up. So I'll be back in 10 minutes. Timer has gone off. It's been 10 minutes. So it is time to take the lid off and get the jars out of the canner. So I am hoping that I don't have any broken jars and very little siphoning. It appears that I have very little siphoning. The water is relatively clear. So I am going to get my jars out. Can you all see that? Beautiful. Sounds like they are popping already. They are sealing. I heard a pop. What I've noticed with the 4 jars lids is that they have a dull sounding pop. I've heard 2 of them pop already. So far so good as far as my jars being intact. Right, the jars are sealing. You guys missed it. 2 more just sealed. Don't know if you can see that. They are bubbling. They're very hot. I want to thank you all for joining me in the kitchen today. I thought about it, and I guess this is going to be a series. What I'm canning out of my freezer. And this is squash soup. This is asparagus soup. And these came out of the freezer. If you like this content, do me a favor, hit that like button, leave me a comment, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not. And I hope to see you either in my kitchen or my garden real soon. Bye for now. Just in case you didn't see it, here is the water after canning squash soup and asparagus. Very little siphoning. So this water, once it's cooled, I'm going to transfer it into the garden. No water is going to be tossed down the drain.